Hey guys, nearly finished the restoration here. Very minimal amount of work left to do, small projects here and there. But I thought I'd show you more or less the product, the stage that I'm at right now. A few people were asking about the color choice, a little bit about the history of the machine, so I thought I'd give you a little information on that, and of course just to see an overview of what it looks like. So when I picked up this lathe, it had a 3-jaw chuck, which looks well used, probably the original that belonged to the lathe. I don't know if there's any markings on this chuck. There are some markings here. It looks like it says 1111. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe something to do with the size. The lathe also came with a 4-jaw chuck. See if we can focus here. There we go. So the 4-jaw chuck looks like it's brand new almost, a little bit of surface rust on it. I just put a little bit of oil on it just to keep it from continuing to rust. And it came with this as well, which looks like it's been abused a little bit. It's been brazed over here, needs a bit of cleanup. The tailstock is original. I don't know that this handle is original. I've seen some other tailstocks from a machine similar. It does not look like this, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe this is an older model. The lock here looks good. It looks original. This guy looks original from other photos that I've seen. The cross slide, all original components on the cross slide. Compound, I should say compound rather. The cross slide is the same. The compound does not have any increments on it. However, the cross slide does. I'm going to assume those are thousandths of an inch. One other part that I noticed is not intact is this handle. This has been replaced, and when I took this apart to repaint, there is a small hairline crack in this plate in behind here. So at some point I'm going to replace that handle as well, try and get it back to the original. This particular machine has pulleys on here which affect the speed of both the cross slide movement and the carriage movement back and forth. So as we adjust the pulleys back and forth, you can adjust both of those speeds simultaneously. And then it also has a threading feature, all of these gears of course, affecting the threading. I'm not so sure that this is set up for compound gearing. I think that these are not original. These posts or build-outs are not original, and they've used them more for gear storage than anything else. It has back gears. The back gears work now. This gear has been recently replaced. It had 2 broken teeth, which had 2 good teeth in between, and it was running. Of course, it would not run very well, so like so. The lathe is driven by this auto drive and a regular farm motor. At some point I'll replace that farm motor or paint it if it's strong enough, powerful enough to drive this lathe. And unfortunately, I think I mentioned in a previous video that I got partway through the restoration of this auto drive and just cooled off and a little bit too cold to be able to paint this. So that might be in the spring, paint this and finish it up. But I have done a video on replacing the oil in the auto drive if you're interested in watching that. Slow speed. Should be in reverse. Second speed. speed. Fourth speed. So put it back into slower speed and then run the carriage across on the lead screw. Like I said, the clutch wasn't working at the moment, but it was working before I took everything apart, which means that I should be able to get it back to where it was before. A few projects that I really need to get done for this lathe. One is the backlash on the cross slide. I'll go back to that in a second. And the other one is this end play nut. And it takes a spanner wrench in order to get it off. I don't have a spanner wrench, so that'll probably be a future video making one, probably forging one. But what looks like has happened is that it's bottomed out and they've torqued it down so hard that, that I just can't get it off. So I've actually tried even putting it in the kiln and into a forge, heating it up, heating up the entire device and then cooling it off as well, trying to get it off. It did not work, so I'm going to try some other things, but I think having the right wrench will help with that. I am missing a few gears as well. It looks like I'm missing the largest gear. Maybe it's broken at some point. 125 teeth or around that range, and typically that would sit at the back in here, and this gear would not be needed. So instead, it looks like after that point, they've replaced it and spanned that distance with two gears instead, which seems to work just fine. But I would prefer to put that large gear back into place. So the other big project that I wanted to work on that is going to be a challenge for me is this end play. It's close to 1/8 of an inch. I should say not end play, but backlash. So it's a little bit excessive. Obviously, once you go in one direction, like so, you should be in pretty good shape as far as removing that backlash. Obviously, it doesn't want to move back, but as soon as you go back and back again, you're not going to necessarily get back to the right numbers that you're looking for. So I'd like to do something about that. So another part that I like to take care of is this oiler. The oilers barely hold anything, and for the work that I do, it's fine. But when I looked in the museum in Dundas, Ontario, that's where this machine was actually made, factory in Dundas. They have a museum there, and it has a lathe almost identical. So it has brass oilers, which come up about like so. Nice shape to them, nice taper to them. And I think I'd like to replace these with something that looks more like that. I've seen some people that have the ones that are glass. I think the brass with a small cap will be fine. I don't want anything sticking out too high either on this one. So I've got two. They don't match. This one here, the threads are actually incorrect for this lathe. The threads are too small. And it looks like they're tapered almost, so it's sinking in there, and the end threads are catching, but the rest aren't. On the other hand, this one here, the threads are exact, and it's a metric size, 12 by 1.25. It's a bit of an odd size for me anyways. I think they sell them on eBay, but nothing of this kind of quality. So over on the carriage, there is what looks like the remnants of a bolt of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what's happened here. There's scratch marks, and they've tried to get it out maybe. But the only thing I can think of is that this is a carriage lock, and the lathe doesn't currently have a carriage lock on it, and I think it might be useful to have one in the future. So I'll have to do some more research on this to see if this is actually what it was. I really don't know. But anyways, that might be a future project, having a carriage lock reinstalled on this lathe. So another project I want to work on is a little bit more of a safety project. There was a aluminum guard that came with the machine that was put on afterward, and it hung from here and it hung from this square bolt as well. I still have it, and I'll probably end up putting it back on temporarily, but I wanted to do a new cover for these to also include the pulleys as well, and it has to allow for all of the different gear sizes that can potentially be on here also. I'm not quite sure whether that's going to be steel or aluminum or what exactly, so that'll be for a future project. We'll think about how we're going to tackle that. And lastly, somebody was asking me about the paint color, why I chose green like this, and I will admit the camera does not like this green, but the original lathe was green when I received it, so I had kind of chosen that I wanted to put a green color back on. I couldn't find an exact match. I think the original was a little bit darker, but you know, when I went to strip the paint, I found that there was something else underneath it. It was almost a rubbery black substance, so I'm not sure whether that was like a lead or what that paint was exactly, or whether it was even paint whatsoever. But anyways, I chose this paint because this is what I was sold by. It's Tremclad, so it's an oil-based paint. Some of their original kind of quality that they had, but it was fast drying. It had a really good spray, and I've seen that it did actually spray very well in comparison to some. It didn't clog up. You could spray upside down, which I thought was great, and it's supposed to be better durability, and the cans are larger as well. I think it was about 12 bucks for this can, so it took about 4 cans to do the entire lathe, and I've got a little bit more work to do for the motor and for the auto drive as well. But safety green, hey, it's a machine. I've seen a lot of new machines that are safety green, so I figured I'd go with that, something a little bit different. By the John Bertram Sons Company Limited, made in Dundas, Ontario. And apparently, because it says limited, that means that it was made after 1901. And that's really as much as I can tell you about this machine and the timeline. The company had a factory. They produced a lot of machinery, mostly bigger than this machine. This was actually the smallest lathe that they made. It was a number 5 at around 1,200 pounds. So if anybody has any information on the lathe, if they have any interest in this lathe and they want to see any more parts, or they have a lathe that's similar, let me know. Contact me through YouTube, and I'd be glad to help out. Otherwise, if you like the video, then you are a vintage lathe fanatic, and I appreciate that. Give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, please, and hope to see you on the next one.
Constant sorrow, I've seen trouble all my day. I bid farewell to old Kentucky, the place where I